welcome to the Volume 15 Untethered Virtual Launch Party. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get started. So, our first reader up this evening is Nhung. Nhung is a writer, poet, and hopefully a rising star at her day job. She moved to the US from Vietnam as a teenager before moving to Canada after graduating college. Although she is proud of the footprints she has left as a nomad, she feels the weight of the distance between her and her family. Her writing often paints a portrait of her mother and the complex relationship between the two of them. She's been published in Jellyfish Review, Lunch Ticket, Sinister Wisdom, and other literary magazines and anthologies. Please help me give a warm welcome to Nhung.
Oh, thank you. I hope I'm unmuted. I'm going to be reading from, can you hear me? Yes, oh, sorry. I'm going to be reading my piece in this volume called Between Me and My Mother. And there are some Vietnamese lines in there that I lifted verbatim from my mom's letters that she wrote me when I was a little kid that kind of prompted me to want to read and write more. I'm not going to translate it because it's a little weird for me to read it in English for some reason. But you can feel free to translate it with Google Translate after this. So, between me and my mother, Nhung ơi con ăn chưa? Nothing stood between me and my mother. You used to sing me a lullaby, your voice stronger than the war on your back, paint me a dream, a woman washing her feet by the river, under pink and blue clouds, clean of bullet wounds and blood-splintered toes. A war stood between me and my mother, but it never bothered me. Your lungs survived explosions, the collapsed tunnel, heavy as asthma attacks, the rapid rhythm of machine guns my brother and I watched in awe on the screen. Cốc sữa mẹ pha mẹ để trên bàn còn nóng. My sexuality stood between me and my mother. As I dreamed of my girlfriend, I dreamed of living in a nation too strange for your tongue, spliced myself in half to paint our family, their dream, your dream of a girl would marry a Vietnamese boy, not strange for your vocabulary, as I keep the girls I date out of the stories I tell you every summer. Language stood between me and my mother. Because you call me and I have Google Translate ready, but not ready if we ever speak your face, to my phone, where the dictionary stares back, blue light blinking, with judgment, not from you. Nhớ chăm em lúc mẹ đi làm nhé. Nothing stood between me and my mother, except your disinterest in my writing, inspired by letters you wrote me as a little girl reading to her brother at home when home meant you accepting my life, understanding what matters to me when you are not there. Không được chiều em. Nothing stood between me and my mother, except our expired American dreams, our new Canadian dream of the freedom to be who I am, a dream of snow, a nice Canadian neighborhood, tame traffic, a 2-day weekend, my dream for the right to fight my rapist, to protest, to speak up, and your loss of watching me grow up. Chiều mẹ sẽ về. Nothing stood between me and my mother. Mẹ ơi, how fast can hair turn gray at your age? How weak a heart can become? How much of your father's illness you inherited? How could I invite you to my new nation with you knowing a quarter of my blood? I don't know how to ask you. Mẹ yêu con. Between me and my mother, 2 languages, 2 cultures, 2 flights, 1 day, 1 night, 10 time zones, 13,142 kilometers, 81 and 66 miles, bông hồng nhung của mẹ, and 2 oceans. Thank you.
Nhung, that was captivating. Thank you so much. Oh, your voice stronger than the war on your back. That was so beautiful. And Jeremy Chiasson says, "Woo, my poetic idol, go Nhung, best verse in the verse."
Thank
So
you.
sweet.
I see Kyle too. Thank you.
So up next on our virtual stage is Anna Veprinska. Anna Veprinska is a poet and scholar. She is the author of the poetry collection Sew with Butterflies, published by Steel Bananas in 2014, the chapbook Stone Blossom, published by untethered Press in 2022, and Spirit Clenched, published by Gap Riot Press in 2020, and the monograph Empathy in Contemporary Poetry After Crisis, published by Palgrave Macmillan in 2020, which received honorable mention in the Memory Studies Association First Book Award. She has a collection of poems forthcoming with the University of Calgary Press. Her poetry was shortlisted for the 2021 Austin Clarke Prize in Literary Excellence and was a finalist for the Best of the Net in 2022. Please welcome Anna with a big round of applause hands. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much, Margot, and thank you, Elena and Conyer. It's a beautiful issue, and I'm really honored to be a part of it and to be here among all these writers. I'm also going to read the poem that was published in this issue called O. I usually like to begin by kind of setting the scene of what a poem is trying to do, not necessarily what it's about. This poem is trying to parse out, I think, the distance between history and memory between two homelands. I was born in Ukraine, and then my homeland here in Canada. So it's called O. With history bitter on my tongue, to where can I return? Birth in a city that no longer exists. Self meets self, and they are strangers. Forgetting is river's work, is dusk of underworld. One eye witnesses, other eye witnesses. To bear witness is to bear witness. Oh, I've spent lifetimes parsing the distance between memory and history, knees cracked from kneeling at their naked altars. An egg is a homeland hosting an assembly of ancestors to remain unhatched, not arrive immigrant thrust into a country rubbing out the history of its people, absorbing English until it is intimate fluency of skin, memory cradled fur. All else is diaspora, is slit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Anna. Forgetting is river's work. That line really held me. I encourage you all to also look at Anna's work, because the work it does visually is really stunning. So our next reader is Christine Higdon. Christine Higdon's novel, Gin, Turpentine, Pennyroyal Rue, was released in September 2023. Her first novel, The Very Marrow of Our Bones, won the Forward Review's Editor's Choice Fiction Prize. Her short fiction won a National Magazine Award and has been published in the Malahat Review, Plenitude, and the New Quarterly. She's been shortlisted and longlisted for the CBC Nonfiction and Fiction Prizes. The daughter of a Newfoundlander and a British Columbian, she lives sometimes in rural Nova Scotia, but mostly in Mimico, Ontario. There, she writes, works, hooks rugs, worries about the bees, and longs for the ocean. Everyone, please welcome Christine.
Okay, we're having fun recording this. Hi, my name is Christine Higdon, and I'm on the land of the Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia, on a cliff overlooking the Minas Basin. And I'm the author of 2 books, The Very Marrow of Our Bones and Gin, Turpentine, Pennyroyal Rue. And I'm going to read to you my story, or part of my story, called Courage, My Love, which I'm very appreciative of Untethered to have published. Courage, my love. Bond's been waiting half an hour for the light, rising like the flood tide, to reach that spot on the wall. Martha won't mind being woken now. You probably want to get married down on the beach in a wedding dress and everything, Bond says to Martha's back. Martha rolls over and sleepily runs her hand across the soft burr of Bond's fresh crew cut. She eases herself closer and rubs her face on Bond's head. That sounds about right, Martha says. Bond smiles, nervous. What should I wear? I don't know. Martha's up on her knees now, straddling Bond. A suit and a tie? Bon looks up into Martha's brown eyes. Yeah? Vulnerable. That's the word Martha's looking for. Yeah, Martha says, lifting her nightie and lying flat on Bon. I'd like that, she whispers into Bon's ear. Bon works at the hardware store in town with the guys, Azim, Alec, and Dimitri. There's never been much talk about relationships, not since Dimitri asked Bon first day on the job, "You married?" Nothing to do with him being interested or anything, just plain old curiosity. Never been much of the marrying type, Bon replied, and that was that. The guys, all of them a year or two away from retirement, have got the whole kit and caboodle. Wives, kids, dogs, grandkids, mortgages, hernias, erectile dysfunction. Well, at least I ain't got that, Bon says, and the guys laughed to tears over that one. Bon really has no idea what made her ask Martha if she wanted to get married. Haven't they got it all, just like the guys? A nice little cabin out on the 10 acres they bought for a song in Nova Scotia 37 years ago. The barn, the chicken coop, Martha's studio, and Bon's woodworking shop. Bon's got a steady job. They got their health. Happy as larks they are. Yeah, there's never been a ring on Martha's finger all these years, but she hasn't once hinted at one either, even after tying the knot became legal. So why the hell did Bon have to go and upset the apple cart? Bon blames her dad. Bill called the morning she ended up popping the question. Bonnie, 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 he said. He was drawling, stewed already, or having a stroke at 11 a.m. When are you going to make an honest woman out of that girl of yours? She'll up and leave you if you're not careful. Put a ring on her finger. Tie her down. That's it. Thank you.
So much, Christine. I just love that story. It's one of those stories, when you get it, you're like, oh, there's just something here. We have to have it. And I think all of us editors just loved it. So thank you. Our next reader is Christina Hennemann. Christina is based on the west coast of Ireland. Her debut pamphlet, Illuminations at Nightfall, appeared in 2022. She's a recipient of the Irish Arts Council's Agility Award 2023, and she was longlisted in the National Poetry Competition. Her work appears in Poetry Island, Poetry Wales, Skylight 47, The Moth, York Literary Review, The Storms, Impossible Archetype, Ink, Sweat and Tears, Moria, and elsewhere. Please help us welcome Christina to the virtual stage.
Hello everyone, my name is Christina and I have 2 poems in this issue and I'm delighted to be part of it. And thank you so much to editor Elena for making the whole experience so enjoyable and professional, and the editing with you was really delightful. I'm going to read just one of the poems because the other one is quite experimental. So the poem I'm going to read is called Apis, and it's arranged in the constellation of the stars. So the poem itself is written in footnotes, but I'm just going to read through it, and if you have a look at the page it makes more sense, I think. And Apis is another word for bird of paradise, so maybe that's helpful as well. So this is Apis. The woods run me more than I run in them. I circle trees, slip on mud. After a breeze, I can barely feel my feet. I'm panting, soaring as if puppeteered from above, but not flying. The branches beneath me crack and crunch under this force my body will not incorporate. Lavatic lungs catapult me into an opening. Pause for a minute, gather my breaths, expand the belly. A dark shape shoots past and shadows a trembling fawn, reproachful clack of hooves, fort of twigs and stems. Her golden eyes on me, and day after day strung together as pearls on a choker necklace. Red mushrooms pierce through moss as my knees bend, sink fingers into dewy cushions. My eyes tending to the earthy and navel-gazing. I'm dragged on to cross the clearing, back under the chilly crown of leaves. Pounding wings that never spread, feet cut off to trap something free and beautiful. My legs still carry me through this skinniness, back into the palm of your hand at nights by the lake. Campfire bread on a stick, you and I, naked under a sparkling sky. Stargazing, you say, is wishing yourself small and magical. Thanks everybody for listening, and enjoy the rest of the launch event.
Thank you so much, Christina. I'm reading along with my Untethered at home, and I just have to say your line breaks are absolutely stunning. So if anyone hasn't gotten themselves a copy yet, make sure that you do so you can read these works on the page.
Yeah, so the next to grace us on our stage is Brian Clark. Brian Clark spent many years in the newspaper business, working as a reporter and a copy editor. Stops included the Toronto Star, the Bermuda Royal Gazette, and St. Catharines Standard. He's now trying his hand at fiction. He's had short stories published in Grain Magazine, the Humber Literary Review, the Spadina Literary Review, fiction on the web, and several other journals. 2 of his stories were nominated for a Pushcart Prize. Brian has also completed a novel and a collection of fictional ghost stories. He's seeking publishers for both. Everyone help us welcome Brian to the stage.
Hello. Yes. Hope you can hear me. Coming to you live from St. Catharines. I want to thank the editors, by the way, for picking my story, publishing this wonderful magazine. It's a great honor. And I want to thank Margot for helping me make the story better. She's definitely the most thorough editor I ever worked with. So thank you. The story is called Helen's Kitchen, 3:30 a.m. Returning from the bathroom for the second time that night, her eyes heavy with sleep, Helen squinted down the dark hallway at the faint white glow coming from the kitchen. Did I forget to turn off the light? Sighing, Helen hobbled down the corridor, wincing at the throbbing pain in her hip. She turned left into the kitchen and immediately discovered the source of the glow. The refrigerator door was wide open. Oh, for heaven's sake, Helen, you really are becoming senile, she muttered. She took another faltering step, reached out to shut the door, and froze. At first, Helen wasn't sure if what she was seeing was real, if she could trust her tired eyes and sleep-deprived brain. So she squeezed her eyes shut and gave her head a shake. But when she opened them, he was still there, a strange man sitting at her kitchen table, eating her tuna casserole. Still bleary, Helen gawked at him, more baffled than afraid. Her vision was fuzzy without her glasses, but she was able to make out his long, curly hair and dark, bushy beard. She struggled to say something, but all she could manage were a few wordless croaks. Finally, she blurted out, "That's my dinner." What a ridiculous thing to say, Helen thought, and almost laughed. "What do you want?" she demanded. Seemingly unperturbed, the intruder continued spooning tuna into his mouth, head down, eyes on the food. "Well, I'm calling the police," Helen said. She turned to exit the kitchen. By the time she crossed the hall and entered her living room, she realized she had just said another dumb thing, this one possibly dangerous. So she stopped and listened, fully expecting to hear the man coming after her. But all she heard was the spoon clinking against the dish and a rumbling belch. Her hip pain momentarily forgotten, Helen scurried over to an end table beside the couch, picked up the phone and punched 9 and 1, then hesitated, her finger poised above the 1. Now all she heard was the sound of her own breathing. She hung up the phone quietly and cast a wary glance towards the kitchen. Maybe it came from the park. Trying to keep her voice steady, she called out, "The police are on their way. Better leave while you can." She waited. "Did you hear me? The police are coming." There was another resounding burp. Taking a deep breath, Helen hurried to her bedroom, put on her housecoat and glasses. and shuffled back down the hall to the kitchen. Hope you know what you're doing, Helen. Stopping in the kitchen entrance, she leaned forward and peeked inside. Still seated at the table, the stranger was now helping himself to a container of store-bought potato salad. He was perfectly centered, and a shaft of light coming from the kitchen, like a stage actor bathed in a spotlight. Holding her housecoat closed at the neck with shaky hands, Helen took 2 cautious steps. "Police will be here any minute," she said, a quiver in her voice. The man ignored her and kept eating. She took a closer look at him. His shoulder-length hair wasn't just curly, it was a mass of greasy tangles. His beard was flecked with gray and spattered with her tuna and potato salad. He was wearing a dirty denim jacket and filthy fingerless gloves. His age was hard to judge. He could have been 35 or 65. Helen cleared her throat. "How did you get in?" Without looking up, the man threw a quick glance at the back door in a corner of the kitchen. Helen took a look, but saw no obvious damage to the door or frame. "Oh God, was it unlocked?" She cursed under her breath. "Look, even if it was, you can't just..." She trailed off, and the stranger just kept eating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. I thought when I first read it, and even now as you're reading it again, I have such a clear image of the kitchen and of the characters. So I really applaud your fantastic writing. I'm really glad that we got to have it in Untethered. So thank you. Our next reader is Alysha Mohamed. Alysha is a passionate poet, playwright, and journalist based in Calgary. She graduated from Queen's University in 2022 with a BA honors in English and political studies. Alysha made her official poetry debut with Nanima and The Colonizer's Nightmare in Arc Poetry magazine, and her articles have been published in outlets including CBC and Maclean's. She loves poems that burn, heal, and subvert all at once. Please help us welcome Alysha.
Hi, my name is Alysha Mohamed. I'm so sad that I'm not able to be at the in-person launch, but I'm so thrilled to have my poem Partition in the newest volume of Untethered magazine, and I'm going to read it now. Your mother's scathing eyes pierce me through the doorway. For a moment, I curl inward like a child, treat her fragmented gaze like the sun. Her back is to me now. I analyze the way her shoulders bend, how her breath catches against the fabric of her shirt. But she is still, as if my presence turns her body to stone. In your kitchen, it's 1947, a butchered map of your homeland taped to the fridge, her resentment and my naivety sparring in the spaces between us. You once told me a story of partition violence, a relative delivered to your mother's childhood home, dismembered, a bloodstained bag of limbs at the doorstep, a senseless act of cruelty, of conquest. Wordless, I saw the memory stretch across generations inherited by your grandparents, your mother, you. Years later, I realize it wasn't that I couldn't meet her gaze. It's that she couldn't meet mine. Thank you.
Alysha, I had the pleasure of first encountering your poetry, your poem Nanima, in an ARC editorial batch and meeting, and now getting to read this poem Partition in Untethered. I love every encounter I've had with your poems, and your voice is just unequivocal, so thank you. Our next reader is Matthew Roy. So Matthew was a joy to work with on the poem that he will be reading from today. Matthew Roy, him, recently moved from a small town to a big city, from a rambling farmhouse to a small apartment, and from a major corporation to an up-and-comer. He's writing more, he's making changes, he's neck-deep in revisions on his first novel and banging away at his second. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in Eternal Haunted Summer, Last Stanza Poetry Journal, Showcase Object and Idea, 2228, and So It Goes, the literary journal of the Kurt Vonnegut Museum and Library, among others. So please give a big round of applause for Matthew as we welcome to the virtual stage.
Thank you, Margot, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to the Untethered team, especially again to Margot. What a pleasure it's been to get to work with you on my story and making it happen. I was really excited to get to be a part of this publication. When I saw the contributor list, I was floored. I am fans of several of you going into this, and I'm fans of even more of you coming out of this. So it's real exciting. My short story, the title is In the Form of a Question, and it's you folks ever hear of Art Lieberman, the rodeo star? Most of my writing is either political and or about the one that got away. But a lot of it comes from dreams. And I had a dream years and years ago, and the two main characters in this story appeared fully formed in it. It was a husband and wife that travel around the country singing at weddings. And I wrote a poem about it at the time, but it didn't do enough. And a few years ago, when I got back into writing, I took an adult continuing education course and was able to turn this into a short story and then get it out into the world. I adore the main characters in this story. I put them through the ringer, but they're two of my favorite people that I've ever gotten the pleasure of getting to write about. So here is my excerpt. Merle adjusted the mic stand, raising it to match his height. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to entertain. My name is Merle Lieberman. I'll be the one serenading you. I couldn't do it without my lovely wife, Carla, providing musical accompaniment. Let's give her a round of applause, huh? Cheers from the crowd. Merle turned to Carla. You ready, Ma? Ready, Pa, she said, old habits and whatnot. Merle faced the crowd. Patriotic bunting left over from the 4th of July competed with wedding decorations. The balloons that said I do and congrats, the wedding arch draped with a simple white sheet, the photo backdrop that said Mr. and Mrs. in carefully painted lettering. Cigarette smoke. That's my dog. Sorry. Just a moment. Wow. All right. So, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. I apologize. He's been quiet the entire night and just got wound up. Cigarette smoke like clouds of incense garlanded the rented Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall, like something holy, churches and funerals. He blinked and pushed those thoughts away. All right, let's get him started, he whispered. Carla pushed her glasses up. She touched her keys and the first measures of Journey's Don't Stop Believin' pumped out across the hall. Merle launched into his best Steve Perry impression. She smiled. He had a hell of a voice when he was sober, and the man had one dandy of a stage presence either way. A dynamo in a rumpled suit and tie. Merle liked these venues, these kinds of gigs the best. A simple handshake and the promise of a good show was all that passed between the parties. No complicated language or legalese, as Merle liked to call it. That said, no contract meant no safety net. They needed this one to go well. They needed this one to be a win, needing the money and whatever boost to Merle's confidence it could provide to get him back on track. Carla looked down at the keys, her fingers dancing across the whites and blacks as Merle led the crowd in sing-along. Colorful stickers decorated the fall board, picked up from rest stops and Cracker Barrels on their travels. Dance like nobody's watching, said one. Bless this mess, said another. Home is where the heart is, was starting to peel away. The keyboard was scratched from wrestling it into and out of the RV that had been their home for the past year. There was a particularly bad black scuff mark where Merle had kicked it after Amarillo. she tried not to think about Amarillo. Thank you all, and thank you for allowing my dog to be a part of tonight.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I think the dog just added a little something, honestly. I loved that. I love that story. That story is amazing. And I honestly think knowing that the characters come from a dream is just makes me love it even more. That's really amazing. I'm a big fan of dreams influencing writing, and that I love knowing that little detail. Thanks for sharing that with us. Our next reader is Ronna Bloom, and I'm really excited to introduce Ronna to you guys. Ronna is the author of 7 books of poetry. She has led initiatives to bring poetry into healthcare settings, specifically developing the Poet in Residence program at Sinai Health. Ronna has collaborated with filmmakers, choreographers, and architects. Her new book, A Possible Trust, The Poetry of Ronna Bloom, selected with an introduction by Phil Hall, is published by Wilfrid Laurier University Press, and you can learn more about her work at ronnabloom.com. But what this doesn't tell you, her official bio, is that she also is publishing really amazing nonfiction, which is what is in this issue, and I hope we get to hear a bit of that. So help us welcome Ronna.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Conyer. I think this is the first time I'm sort of talking to you in real life, sort of thing. And thank you for editing. Thank you so much for editing this piece. I really enjoyed that process. And thank you for publishing it, Untethered, folks. This is just a gorgeous cover. But I'm going to read an excerpt from the piece off my computer, and just the first few paragraphs to give you a little taste. I'm really delighted that you took this piece, because I have been sort of secretly writing prose, but it's no longer a secret, obviously, because now I'm doing it more and more, and I'm really liking it. And then I'm going to read a new poem that I just wrote. So this is just a little taste of the song of the self-service checkout. When I'm in other cities and other countries, I like to visit grocery stores, airport, stationers, and hospital gift shops too. I wonder, what's the specialty here? The local junk food, the talisman. I could stand all day in the cookie aisle in Toronto where I live, especially in the convenience stores with their unfairly neglected shelves where only a few boxes are standing and may have been standing a long time. I rarely touch them, but there is longing and an evocation of an older yearning. My child self once looked up to these shelves like libraries. What could I absorb in private? What morsel to save and share? And later, reflecting with others, ask if they too remembered the cereals of yore, the Pop-Tarts, the cardboard boxes read at breakfast. The convenience store on my corner has 2 brightly colored cake mix boxes, yellow for lemon, brown for chocolate. The cake pictures have survived decades of rebranding, still standing, and no one has plucked them off the shelf. These are the museum pieces. When threatened with power outages, food shortages, and snowstorms, they are taken. Otherwise, they stand like icons. So I hope you'll get the issue so you can read more about these fabulous grocery stores. You know what I'm talking about. You have them on your corner. But I'm going to read you a poem I wrote last Thursday. It's just a few days old. The same days as the fires out west. The open sky. As though a stand of trees in which I took refuge would soon burn, I was on alert. Evacuation times shifted with the... You know what? I'm going to start again because I want to tell you a little bit more about this context. It's a weird combo. So the fires were going in Jasper and in BC, where I have a very good friend who was about to be evacuated. And at the same time, and it feels kind of crazy to compare, but there's a place I go to in Toronto called Annapurna Restaurant, which I've been going to for 30 years. I know it's a long time. And I sit and I drink tea there and I write. And they've been around for 50 years. And they're closing on Saturday forever. And I am in grief about this loss. And it sounds small, but it's sort of like a home. And so those two things conflated came together for me, the open sky. As though a stand of trees in which I took refuge would soon burn, I was on alert. Evacuation times shifted with the wind. Every being is a vortex of change. Closing time rang the forest clock with no hands and no face, rang the birds' voices. I would sit quietly until I had to go, until the last minute flames. Sometimes a fire is necessary for clearing, for renewal. Sometimes a few refuse to leave their shelter even when smoke comes. But when it's time, I'll head out into the open sky, and that'll be my refuge. Goodbye, my friends, the trees. You have provided the green, fresh nutrients I've been breathing all these years. I am filled with your beauty, and now is the hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that poem with us. I was saying, I think we can all grieve with you and feel that grief of losing a place, even if it seems as small as a restaurant. But we, it's our habits, our comfort, our rituals, our writing rituals. So I really appreciate that poem. And I mean, I'm such a big fan. So, but it's also, like Conyer said, really nice to read your nonfiction as well. So thank you so much for sending it our way. Okay. Our next reader is Liz Pfister. Liz is a writer and translator living in Berlin. She is the editor-in-chief emeritus of Sand Journal, as well as the author of the blog Eat Me, Drink Me. Her original works and translations have appeared or are forthcoming in Janus Literary Review, Still, Glean and Graft, The Bastille, Counter Service, and No Man's Land, among others. She recently published her first collection of essays, Palette. Please help us welcome Liz to the virtual stage.
Hi everyone, I'm Liz. Thank you for letting me be a part of this launch. Sorry that I can't be there in person. By the time you're watching this, it's the middle of the night in Berlin, but honored to be a part of it virtually. I'm going to read the piece that is published in this issue of Untethered. It's called Night Cycling. It's the slip that makes the rest unsteady. The first one on a slick black road encrusted with ice. Bikes' tracks frozen into fantastical ridged miniature ranges. The Himalayas in crud slush, and it's the first one, the first slip. I skid, I kid, that sucks out a sense of purpose driven forward from under one. I want this to be general, like, in general, isn't this universally applicable? I want somebody to tell me I deserve it. I want to get off and walk. I want a plot, 10 acres and a garden of roses, bushes of birds that scatter like buckshot at my gardener's shears. I hurt, I hurry, I bike on ice and breathe in lung-searing cold, and the first slip's worse for not knocking me over, sprawled on the ground, bruised, and the object of everybody's attention, while I stare up and up from my twisted heap of spoke and chain. No, I'm moving ever forward, never stopping, but with a cold grip in my gut that says, you will fuck this up. I regret a lot of things, like leaving college without ever taking Alan up on his offer of a date. And I regret leaving a USB stick of pictures on an Amtrak somewhere between Philly and Baltimore and lying about it afterwards. And I regret leaving my home at all tonight, leaving the land the good Lord gave me and where I had 10 acres. Okay, my parents had 10 acres, but I had a stacked deck. And okay, I don't regret that leaving, but once you start regretting, it's hard to stop. And now, do you see what I mean? How it's a metaphor for everything. And I mean, my God, it started so small. A tire slip on gripless snow. And now I can't catch a breath because sooner or later I'll crash. So why not just get it over with? And you can tell me I deserved it when I get there. Thanks.
interiority in that poem. Thank you. Thank you so much, Liz. So our next reader up to the virtual stage is Ripley Kemp, they, he. Ripley Kemp is from Tikaranto by ways of small-town Ontario. Their writing has been featured in Untethered before, as well as in The Ex-Puritan and other publications. Ripley co-founded a pretty rad micropress so long ago that they feel their bones turning to dust just thinking about it. Their lifelong goal is to pet every single dog on Earth. So Matthew Roy and Ripley Kemp, we got to make some friends here. They have a lot of dogs left to go. If you have any dogs or know any dogs, please direct them Ripley's way. Ripley also wants you to know that you are pretty rad and you are loved. So please help us welcome Ripley to the stage. Welcome, Ripley.
Okay, hello everybody. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, if all sounds good. Cool. Okay, awesome. Just a couple of things. One, thank you so much to Untethered. First time I got published by Untethered, it was amazing. This time it especially is amazing because I've been working on this piece like off and on for 6 years. And it means a lot to me. It also means a lot to me for many reasons, but one of them is it's very personal and content warning about suicide and suicidal ideations. So fair warning for that. Also, if you want to follow along, it's a very long boy, so I'm going to be skipping around. So trying to follow along in the issue, it's not going to work exactly. So yeah, we'll just get into it. It's called Ouroboros. All right, part 1. Somehow Montreal wasn't too exhausting, even dealing with the coroner or the funeral home or Soto, the middle-aged cop who was carrying under her middle-aged mum cardigan, Soto, the middle-aged mum cop who brazenly flashed her gun in daylight in the village and said, if anyone gives you trouble, they deal with this. They deal with me. And I asked if she was joking, and she didn't say anything, and she just kept walking, so I just kept walking. We clean your apartment and I get your books. I get the Fugazi records. Sheldon gets the rest of the record collection, and I don't know who the fuck Sheldon is, so I get the rest of the record collection. We clean your apartment and we find mysterious goopy things. We find old notes and human teeth and your VHS and your DVD collections with Star Trek The Next Generation still in the DVD player. We find a coffee cup sleeve with your dead name on it, and I have it on my fridge now, and I feel awkward about the politics of your dead name keepsake, but I have nothing else of yours but Mad magazines and your record collection, which I don't even have the room to store in a Toronto apartment, because who the fuck does? We find your mom's plant older than you or me spidering its way across your record collection. We find a double-ended dildo in a sock. We finish quickly because lingering means thinking. We talk about the legality of mailing human teeth across the Canadian-American border, and over iced coffees, I pontificate about how absurd it is that I'm doing this, and this is one of my jobs as an executor to somebody's will, and I decide not to mail the human teeth because honestly, I find it too fucking weird to mail human teeth, let alone keep human teeth. But here we are now. I'm calling you, my dead best friend, fucking weird for collecting human teeth, let alone wanting to mail them to somebody else. So I don't mail the teeth, but I don't throw them out because those teeth are your collection. And so now, look what you've fucking done. You've made me one of those teeth collecting weirdos because I don't have much else but your coffee cup sleeve and your records. And I don't have room for them and stacks of Mad magazines and 2 pictures of us. Look what you've fucking done. I'm one of those human teeth weirdos. Part 1, there is a propulsion, an immediacy to the days, which is funny because half the days are spent eating croissants, half the days are spent waiting for Soto, for Enoch, for coffee, for gelato, for the metro, for more coffee, waiting for the night when it all becomes very exhausting, when it all becomes very you and me, and the me is me, and the you is a letter that I don't open until the last night that I'm in Montreal. Part 1, I wait until it's the last night and I look at Montreal and its big-ass red cross, illuminated, fluorescent, and foreboding on the 29th story of the hotel. Part 1, it's just me and you in the form of a letter, and I open it now and it's open and it's you. Part 1, that's all you are now. You are a letter and this. This was written in 2 days, in 2 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years after the facts, after the unreality of it. It's just me and you and the cacophonous cackle and snort that I've inherited from you. It's all that I have of you, and it's in me now. All the tangible things I have are the coffee cup sleeve and Mad magazines and too many records and human fucking teeth and that way that you threw your head back and howled and bared your throat, bared your teeth and werewolf grinned. That's all I have now. And in writing you and in rewriting you and writing you and writing you and writing you, that is all that I have now. Part one, do you notice how I'm talking around it? Around the very real reality that you aren't here and I still am, around the very real reality in which we sat on my balcony and you asked me what would happen if you died. And I snorted, I cackled, you didn't. You stared a while, you watched somebody unloading their groceries from their car. I said that it would be the worst day of my life. I said it a few more times and the conversation just kind of petered out and you went to get Thai food. I can confirm that yes, that is the worst day of my life, part one. Anyway, I get very sidetracked very easily now. I get very sidetracked and very exhausted very easily now. Like I could be doing laundry and then it's the worst day of my life again. Even if it's only for 5 minutes, it's the worst day of my life again. That is how existing is exhausting now. Exhausting for all the same reasons as before, but different now. Now with some kind of bonus added exhaustion. Part one, I was 16 and you were 15 when we met. I'm 30 when I write this for the first time. You were 28. A friend of a friend of a friend, or maybe one less friend removed, introduced us to the bleachers at school in mid-October. You were from Toronto and your dad moved around a lot, and I was from Kingston, and you were very cool because you weren't from Kingston. And I didn't know who Fugazi was, and you weren't impressed. Part one, when I was 24 and you were 22, you told me that I have a tendency to meander in my work, and then I just try to wrap things up very neatly, that I kind of just vomit onto the page for a while. I panic and I don't know how to end things. That I didn't know that things don't necessarily need to end. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, Conyer fucking edited this and I didn't know what the fuck this was. And they made it something good. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I'm super fucking happy that this found a home. Thank you.
I love this piece so much, and hearing you read that I have goosebumps, like big old goosebumps, and I'm just really, really touched by hearing you read that, and so happy that it's in our issue. Thank you so much for reading that. Yeah, it's really powerful. So our next reader is Mahaila Smith. Mahaila Smith, is Mahaila here? Mahaila, I didn't know if I think you are. Okay,
hey, I'm here.
Okay, good. Sorry, I didn't see you earlier, so I just wanted to make sure. Good. All right. Mahaila Smith, in Eve pronouns, is a young femme writer living and working on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe in Ottawa, Ontario. They are one of the co-editors for the Sprawl Mag. They like learning theory and writing speculative poetry. Their debut chapbook, Claw Machine, was published by Anstruther Press in 2020. Their second chapbook, Waterkin, was published by Metatron Press in 2024. And it's not in this bio, but they also have another chapbook, Enter the Hyperreal. That is it out now or is it coming out in a couple weeks?
It should be coming out in a few days. So,
okay.
But it is available to order now, and it is one of the raffle prizes.
Oh, exciting. And you can find more of their work at mahailasmith.ca. Welcome, Mahaila.
Thank you so much. So I am going to be reading my poem titled, I Vowed to Be of Service to Other Beings. And this poem was inspired by an exhibit I saw of Heg Yang's work that was installed at the Art Gallery of Ontario from October 2020 to April 2021. And a lot of her work incorporates domestic everyday objects into these unusual, absurd sculptures, which I love. So, on a productive day, I get out my fountain pen and paper and stand outside in the rain, letting wet smear, you can't read this, you can't read this, you can't. I melt pods of red wax in a spoon held over a candle and seal open wounds. I see animals in everything and crochet little sweaters for the table legs, the chairs, the stove burners. I watch as an end of yarn catches fire beneath the steaming kettle. I advertise contracts on all the hydro poles, signing away my storage locker code, my phone password. I strip apartments of their shutters and use them to build houses, cots, and international treaties. Cyborg horses alert the neighbors. I hide in Circle K and make a picture frame around the yellow stain left beneath molding potatoes. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mahaila. I love your poem. When I first read it, I was just taken by all these little moments, especially crocheting these, little bits for furniture. I thought, okay, well, that seems something. I mean, I was thinking COVID. I was like, this is something I could find myself doing stuck at home. And then I got really curious about this art collection. So of course I Google, and it's fantastic. So, and I can see how that poem is really speaking back to it. So I would encourage everybody to, of course, read the poem, Google and look at the collection, and then read the poem again. So thank you, Mahaila. Our next reader is Lisa Jones. Lisa is a graduate of Simon Fraser's writing studio and is undertaking her MA in social work. Her writing has been shortlisted for the Raven Short Story Contest, longlisted for the Hummingbird Flash Fiction Prize, and has been published in Kerning, A Space for Words, Blank Spaces, and Emerge 22 Anthology. Lisa lives in Uxbridge, Ontario, with her partner, daughter, and a dog with 27 nicknames. Let's welcome Lisa to the stage.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Jones and this is Bogey. I wanted to say a big thank you to the editors of Untethered and all of the contributors to this issue. It really was such a joy to read. So today I'll be reading an excerpt from my short story, The Loom. As evening falls, I stitch together the two strips of fabric, one thick and stained red, the other flimsy with splashes of color and tracks of bushy sweater yarn. That night, both my shoulders are covered, but my feet stick out the bottom. I wake up to a frantic phone call from Janie. Why haven't you answered my texts? I tell her I found a hobby. All week, I pull apart the textiles of our lives. Things from soirees, thin cotton pajamas with Disney princesses, a pair or two of mittens. The living room is littered with mines of thread that I haven't yet learned to store. I go back to the loom. Piece by piece, it grows. I stitch together long rectangular strips of different shades and textures. It's a mess, but it's mine, and it's beautiful in a tragic sort of way. At night, I cocoon beneath it, and soon it covers my toes. I know where every thread came from and can tell 5 stories to go along with each one. I dream of things I forgot existed, good dreams where the dead feel alive. I wake up expecting to hear them puttering around in the kitchen. When this new blanket reaches the corners of my bed, I consider stopping. I've unraveled so much of the house, but there's more left. I decide to continue until it reaches the floor. In another week, Janie is home, so I rush to finish. I stay up until morning on the day she arrives, stitching on the final rectangle, the blouse I wore with cleavage that embarrassed her, and brown yarn from a stuffed bear named Teddy. Strands, loose stitches, errant flutters of thread cover the house. I stuff it all in a hefty bag and toss it in the garage. After an hour-long vacuum, the place is back to normal, but it feels new, and so do I. When Janie arrives, I'm sweating through my collar. You look... She examines my sweatpants and the splotches on my face. Invigorated. That's a word for it, sure. My voice is strange. I haven't used it in a month. She tosses her duffel bag on the couch and rubs my back. Tell me about this hobby. I shrink at the pity in her voice, but straighten when I think of what I'm about to show her. The loom is back in its corner, so she can't guess just yet. I usher her up the stairs, and she steps, as if my hobby will jump out unannounced. Seeing my comforter on her bed, she glances at me. Then, through the doorway to my room, she peers over my shoulder and recoils at the mess of patchwork. Her eyes trail over thick yarns that bounce through silk like pebbles on water, colors never meant to come together. Will she see it the way I do? Janie edges around me toward it. She kneels at its corner, lifting an edge, the last piece. She pulls it to her face. What is this? I took our old life apart and put it back together. She runs her hand up the fabric, and I crouch beside her to share what I know about each thread, starting with his scarf. Thanks so much for listening and being here, and best of luck to everyone else doing a reading tonight. And bye from Bogey.
So much, Lisa. I have to address something. I also have a dog named Bogey. So if you're seeing this on YouTube after the fact, I think we need to see if any of those nicknames match up, those 27 nicknames. But back to the story. When I first read The Loom, oh my gosh, my nose was like here to the screen. I was just, if I could turn the pages, I would turn them, but I read on my iPad. And it was just such a tactile and sensory story. It was kind of like the equivalent of like crawling around on the floor and discovering everything new and different. That was kind of the experience of being in this story. And so I would also like to shout out Holly Gaderi, who I replaced on this issue as fiction editor. I just want to say that coming in after the curation was done, that could be a risky thing, because what if, what if I didn't have the same taste as Holly? But Holly has such incredible taste that every single one of these 5 stories and the 5 authors, for each story, it was like this. I was able to read them like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. This is so good. So to everyone, all the fiction writers that I work with, just a big pat on the back for your talent. So our next reader is Yasmin Wooldridge. Yasmin Wooldridge is a creative bog hag, primarily a poet, living on Treaty 4 territory. Born in Karachi, Pakistan, she and her family lived there for 18 months, then they spent 5 years in Doha, Qatar. In her youth, she and family traveled widely, giving her a great scope of experiences and knowledge. She inherited a curious, wandering spirit from her mother, and it is the elements of travel and grief that reflect in her work. She was a reader for the Jaipur Literature Festival Toronto 2020 and the Saskatchewan Writers Guild Book Bites Series 2022, and has been published in Space magazine. Please help us welcome Yasmin.
Hi everyone, I'm coming through from a very hot prairies tonight, but I'll get right into reading. Just mention that, well, it's the second one, 6:45 a.m. And we're in summertime, we're not going to notice it as it's written. So it was written in the spring, so I'll give you a heads up on that. But first one is Memory. In another life, sands of time slowly unfurl, scarlet flowers the bottle brush tree, and uncurl red storms coat everything in sand, like a child with a paintbrush whirling. Shamal's grains, gin pluck them all, filters in gold filigree, a coffee pot on black embers. A Dalmore's half-remembered in Dukan, listless dreams, a new house caught at Ras Abu Abud. From the bottom of the Gulf, tight fishing lines entomb a sea-green turtle. Along Aria wails, crests, singing sand dunes before a butchered moon. During Eid al-Fitr, a knife twists, splashes colored firelights from Maghrib, and at dawn a husky call gathers supplicants, azure hydrangeas, desert roses, serrated palms, and twists them lopsided in concrete Nabu forms. 6:45 a.m. Indigo morning gives way to blueberry blue, light crinkles in the sky, slowly add night and just day, cream, together until well mixed, a sickle moon like a cat's eye, peers at you, tiptoeing through, preparing in the kitchen, gradually press darkness, in a chilled steel blue bowl, smooth and spread until edges are evenly covered. Baked golden brown like your hands, walnut-chipped mugs, pouring sunlight in my night-kissed room. You're an illusion, your footfall as thunder over the hills of my childhood, your voice, quiet dawn breaking through mists of memory, your soft hands fading into lemon light. Another day begins without you. Frost releases your hair everywhere, on trees, on grass, strands and curls, on the iron lake, whispered cackling, steady but frail, warm and full of spring, tangles, knotted wisps braid around my fingers, melting on a brown bed. A tiny purple star is born, your favorite prairie crocodile. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. I wouldn't normally describe landscape descriptions as like visceral, but that's like the word that comes to mind with yours. And I think that's so interesting and they're so evocative. Yeah, I really love the way that you do that. So our final reader for the night is Mark Foss, who I had the pleasure of working with on some nonfiction in this issue. Based in Montreal, Mark Foss is the author of 2 novels and a collection of stories. He has also been awarded a residency by the Marble House Project and nominated for a Pushcart Prize for his creative nonfiction. This piece, along with others in Subtrain, Existir, and elsewhere, is part of a planned collection of linked essays. Apart from his own writing, he is the co-editor of The Book of Judith, New Village Press 2022, an homage to the life of poet, writer, and teaching artist Judith Tannenbaum and her impact on incarcerated and marginalized students. You can find out more about his work at markfoss.ca. So please help us welcome our final reader for the night, Mark Foss.
Hi, my name is Mark Foss, and the editors of Untethered have graciously invited everyone to give a little self-promotion. So I'd just like to say that my most recent novel, Borrowed Memories, was published in June by 8th House Publishing in Montreal, and I'm very happy about that, obviously, and also very happy to be here for this launch of the new issue of Untethered, even if I'm participating remotely. I'm going to read an excerpt from my essay, Catch and Release. When I lost my wife Mishka in 2017, she left behind 30 years of material from her career as a filmmaker. The Cinémathèque Québécoise agreed to take most of her archive, but what will I do with the 8 boxes of music tapes from her film Nowhere to See? The questions have taken on more urgency since the triplex where we lived in Montreal sold and I have to move. It seems unhealthy to set up all her remaining possessions in a new place as if she were still alive. Yet it will be hard to let go of all of her fish, a symbol of good luck in her Tunisian culture. In the bedroom, a ceramic fish still hangs from a nail on the wall above her clothes hooks. A multicolored glass fish hangs above the bed, nearly camouflaged against the tapestry. I can bring all the fish with me to my new home, but it won't be the same. My father would not have dwelled on such questions. He would have written a letter to the editor or his member of parliament. He would have said, only women have their homes repossessed without a fight. The house trailer that my father built for family fishing trips we never took sat on cement blocks in the back lot of our cottage. In fact, it's in the space behind me that's now covered in trees and shrubs. I used it for sleepovers with an older female friend who taught me dirty camp songs on the top bunk. As we began to nod off, I sensed my father rustling outside, his flashlight beaming through the screen in the tiny window. I kept my eyes closed and feigned sleep, uncertain what code I was violating. When I fished, which wasn't often, I used the kind of pole Huckleberry Finn might have balanced on his shoulder on his way to the fishing hole. It was a thin metal rod with a cork handle that was crumbling, a victim of cold winters in the garage, or the nibbling mice that lived there. I had to unravel the entire line and then swing it into the water as far as I could, taking care not to catch the hook on anything or anyone. When I was finished, I twirled the pole over and over in my hand to wind up the line. It all piled up in one place, like the dental floss my father would rewind for reuse the next day. Once, My friend John and I slipped out before dawn to trick the perch and rock bass into fighting before they were truly awake. I felt no tugs on the line. Maybe I needed a heavier sinker to weigh it down. As morning broke and our plastic lures came up empty, I was secretly relieved. I worried how the fish would survive out of their natural habitat. For all they knew, the dark, circular world of our metal bucket would be their new home forever, their breath bubbles reaching the surface as desperate calls for help. I imagined them endlessly chasing their tails, fighting over the limited space. Or worse, if we only caught one, the stillness brought on by solitude. Yes, we would release our catch, but the fish might never recover from the displacement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate that reading and that you shared that really beautiful story with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. It's a bit weird that I'm here watching myself, but I am here. And I will take this moment just to thank Konya for her amazing editing. She really turned this around.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you're able to be here and pass that message on to Konya. Well, everybody, that's it for the readings tonight. Can I get another round of applause? Snaps, emojis, chat, comments for our readers. They did such a fantastic job. It's such a beautiful issue. So before we leave, hang on a few more minutes. Just a few thank yous. So thank you to everyone who chose to spend their Wednesday evening with us. Thank you to the contributors for, of course, making this issue possible. To our amazing first readers, copy editors, proofreaders who just volunteer their energy and expertise to make our little slice of Canlit reality. To Candice Dutchin, a Saskatoon-based artist, for giving us permission to use your amazing artwork on our cover. Follow Candice if you can on Instagram. Yes, Margot's holding it up. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just absolutely gorgeous. And again, another huge thank you to Stephanie McKechnie, our Untethered co-founder and layout designer extraordinaire. Again, Untethered would never have existed without you. So thank you to Margot and Konya again for all your hard work. And they're both just stellar editors. Like I can't even stress it enough. Like working with them is beautiful, but also their editing skills are just amazing. So if you get a chance to work with them outside of Untethered, please find them.
So is Elena.
We love working with you. Oh my gosh.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Untethered.
Thank you. And finally, thank you to the donors who generously donated to our raffle draw. So thank you. I have to say, I'm feeling both excited and invigorated by these readings, but also sad. This is my last issue with Untethered, and it's been an absolute journey. Untethered was the first journal that I started working with, and I've learned so much about the literary magazines and the production process. It's been amazing, and it's just I'm not leaving because for anything other than I can't clone myself. I just it's just time for me to move on. I have so much on my plate, and certain things have to kind of come off of that. So it's been amazing. Thank you, Stephanie, for inviting me to join the team and for kind of letting me lead Untethered over the last few years. It's been amazing. So thank you. I had such a privilege to get to work with so many amazing people. Like I said, the first readers to the contributors to the editors, all across Canada and some in the States and some across the pond. It's amazing. I feel like I could go to any province and be like, hey, I'm stopping in, come have a coffee with me, come visit. It's been amazing. So I won't ramble anymore. Final reminder in closing, please don't forget to head over to that virtual launch hub, alwaysuntethered.com, and get your raffle tickets. and of course, copy of the new issue. Our raffle tickets will be available until tomorrow at midnight. So please share on social media. That's another way to help us out, so that we can keep the lights on, as it were. And we'll do the draw Friday. So I think there was someone asking in the chat. Yes, when you buy them, we get notified from PayPal. And I've got my little spreadsheet, and I'll put your names in, and I'll email you if you're a lucky winner. I'll also post it on social media. That's it. So readers, take a final bow. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Thank you. I hope everyone has a safe night, a safe week, and take care.